The Seattle summer draped the city in a golden haze, the Puget Sound shimmering under a relentless sun. In a charming craftsman home, nestled in Fremont, Claire Thornton, a 45-year-old nonprofit coordinator with a warm smile and a knack for nurturing, stood in her kitchen, the scent of rosemary and garlic lingering from dinner. Her blonde hair was swept into a loose chignon, and her sundress clung softly to her curves, a testament to her quiet confidence. The house was still her husband Mark, a 48-year-old financial consultant working late at the office, leaving her alone with her adopted stepson Jake Ellis, a 22-year-old community college student with a guarded heart and a past shadowed by foster care. Claire had always prided herself on being the steady one, the wife who planned family vacations, the mother who bandaged scraped knees, the woman who held her world together with grace. Her marriage to Mark, spanning 2 decades, had settled into a comfortable rhythm, the fiery passion of their early years mellowing into a reliable partnership. Jake, adopted at 16 after years of instability, had been their miracle. A quiet boy who'd blossomed under their care into a kind, introspective young man. But beneath the surface of their idyllic life, a subtle tension had begun to simmer, one Claire couldn't quite name. It started with Jake's closeness, small, seemingly innocent gestures that carried a weight she couldn't ignore. He'd linger by her side in the kitchen, his arm brushing hers as they chopped vegetables, his laughter too eager when she teased him. On movie nights, he'd sit close on the couch, their thighs touching, sending an inexplicable flutter through her chest. Claire dismissed it as a son's need for maternal warmth, a longing born of his turbulent past. But his eyes told a different story, a hunger that stirred guilt and a forbidden curiosity within her. Mark noticed it too, his jaw tightening when Jake hovered too near his, silence heavy with unspoken unease. He'd shoot Claire-pointed looks, frustration simmering, but neither spoke of it, as if naming the tension would make it real. They carried on pretending their home was still a haven, even as the air grew thick with unacknowledged desires. That warm July evening, everything changed. Mark was at the office, buried in spreadsheets, and Jake had retreated to his room after dinner. Claire, wiping down the kitchen counters, felt the house's silence press against her, heavy and expectant. She decided to check on Jake before bed, a routine gesture of care. His door was slightly ajar, soft indie music, drifting from within the glow of a lamp, casting shadows across the hallway. She knocked lightly, but no answer came. Nudging the door wider, she peered inside, expecting to find him asleep or lost in a book. What she saw stole her breath. Jake sat on his bed shirtless, his jeans unbuttoned, lost in a private moment of raw intimacy. The faint glow of his laptop screen illuminated his flushed face, his movements urgent, oblivious to her presence. Claire's heart lurched, a tidal wave of shock, embarrassment, and an electric thrill crashing over her. She should have turned away, closed the door, erased the image from her mind. But her feet stayed rooted, her gaze locked on the scene, a forbidden pull holding her captive. As if sensing her, Jake spun around, their eyes meeting in a heartbeat of frozen time. His face blazed crimson, his hand jerking back as he scrambled to button his jeans. "Claire!" he gasped, his voice trembling. "I didn't know you were there." Words failed her, her mind a chaos of guilt and desire. She stammered, her heart pounding so loudly it drowned out reason. She should have apologized, retreated, promised to forget. Instead, she stepped into the room, closing the door behind her with a quiet click, the sound echoing like a vow. The room buzzed with energy, the air thick with unspoken truths. Jake sat rigid, his chest heaving, eyes wide with shock and a hunger that mirrored her own. "Claire," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry. You weren't supposed to see that. It's okay," she said, her voice shaking, betraying the storm within. "You don't need to apologize." Jake's gaze shifted, the vulnerability of a frightened boy giving way to something darker, more desperate. He stood, closing the distance between them, his bare skin radiating heat. "Claire, I can't stop thinking about you." he said, his voice low, raw. Something's happening to me. His words ignited a fire within her, a whirlwind of guilt, shame, and a longing she couldn't name. She knew this was wrong, a line that could never be uncrossed, but his proximity, the intensity in his eyes, unraveled her resolve. "Jake, we can't," she whispered, her voice trembling. "This isn't right." He shook his head, his eyes blazing with need. "I know it's not right, but I can't help it. You're the only one who's ever cared about me, Claire. The only one who makes me feel like I matter." His confession cut through her, a blade of guilt and desire. She should have pushed him away, reaffirmed the boundaries of their roles. But the truth was, she wanted him too, in a way that shattered her identity as a mother, a wife. Her hand reached out, trembling, tracing the line of his jaw. Jake's breath caught his gaze, locked on hers, and then he leaned in his lips, capturing hers in a kiss that was anything but filial. It was hungry, urgent, a release of years of suppressed longing. Claire kissed him back, her hands tangling in his hair, the world narrowing to the heat of his mouth, the press of his body. When they parted, gasping, their faces flushed with shame and desire, Claire knew she should stop this, declare it a mistake. But the words wouldn't come. She fled to her room, locking the door, her body trembling as she lay awake, haunted by the spark they'd ignited, a spark that refused to be extinguished. In the days that followed, guilt consumed her. Claire threw herself into work, into household chores, anything to avoid Jake's gaze. But his presence was inescapable, his eyes tracking her every move, their shared secret a silent scream between them. Mark sensed the shift, his silence heavier, his glances sharper, but he said nothing, as if afraid to confront the truth. The house became a pressure cooker, each moment a test of their restraint. Then came the night, everything unraveled. Mark was away at a conference in Portland, leaving Claire and Jake alone. The day had been a dance of avoidance, their interactions clipped the tension palpable. By evening, Claire poured a glass of Chardonnay, hoping to dull the ache in her chest. She sat on the couch, staring blankly at the TV when Jake appeared in the doorway, his blue eyes piercing his presence, a magnet she couldn't resist. "Claire," he said, his voice low, sending a shiver through her. "We need to talk." She sipped her wine, steadying herself. "About what?" He stepped closer, hands in his pockets, his gaze unwavering. "You know what? That night. It wasn't a mistake, was it?" Her heart raced, her voice trembling. "Jake, we can't. What happened was wrong. It won't happen again." He shook his head, pain etched across his face. "It wasn't wrong. I've felt this way for years, Claire. I didn't know how to say it." "Jake, you're my son," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm not your son," he snapped, his voice rising. "I'm not blood. You didn't raise me from a baby. I'm just a guy you took in, and I love you not like a mum, but like a woman." His words hit like a sledgehammer, stripping away her defenses. She wanted to argue, to cling to the roles that defined them, but the truth in his eyes was undeniable. "Jake, please," she pleaded. "This can't happen. I don't care if it's right or wrong," he said, stepping closer, his voice fierce. "I love you, Claire, and I know you feel it too." She opened her mouth to protest, but the words died as he surged forward, kissing her with a desperation that shattered her resolve. This time she didn't pull away. Her hands found his hair, the wine glass slipping from her grip, shattering on the floor. The world faded, her marriage, her morals, the life she'd built, leaving only Jake, his touch, the fire he ignited within her. They stumbled to her bedroom clothes, falling in a frantic trail, their bodies colliding in a rush of need. It was wrong, a betrayal of everything Claire held dear, but in that moment she felt alive, desired in a way Mark hadn't made her feel in years. They crossed every line, their passion a reckless surrender to emotions too powerful to contain. Afterward they lay tangled in the sheets, Jake's head on her chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her skin. Claire should have felt guilt, shame, but a strange calm enveloped her. "This doesn't change anything," she said, more to herself than him. "It can't happen again." Jake looked up, his eyes intense. It already has Claire. It's not going to stop. She wanted to argue, but deep down, she knew he was right. This was no fleeting mistake. It was the beginning of something dark, dangerous, and unstoppable. The weeks that followed were a fever dream of secrecy and obsession. Claire and Jake moved through the house like conspirators. Their days a performance of normalcy, their nights a battleground of desire. When Mark was home, they were careful, no lingering glances, no accidental touches. But in the quiet hours when the world slept, they surrendered to the pull between them. Claire knew it was wrong, a betrayal that would destroy her family. But Jake was an addiction, a fire she couldn't extinguish. Mark remained oblivious, consumed by work, missing the subtle shifts in their dynamic, the way Jake's eyes followed Claire, the way her laughter faltered when Mark touched her. But the cracks in their marriage widened the distance between Claire and Mark, growing insurmountable. She told herself it was temporary, that Jake would move out, that normalcy would return. But the truth was a shadow creeping closer with each stolen moment. Then came the night everything shattered. Mark returned home early from work, his face pale, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. Claire was in the kitchen preparing dinner when he sat at the table, his voice heavy. "We need to talk." Her heart stopped, fear gripping her. Had he discovered them? Was this the end? "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice steady despite the panic. "It's Jake," Mark said, rubbing his temples. "I got a call from his college today. He's been skipping classes, getting into fights. They're worried about him." Claire frowned, her mind racing. Jake had always been a diligent student, his quiet focus a point of pride. "Why?" "What's going on?" Mark shook his head. "They didn't say, but I think it's his past catching up. All those years in foster care, it's a lot for him to carry." Guilt twisted in Claire's gut. She'd attributed Jake's recent moodiness to their affair, but was there more? Had their actions pushed him to the edge? That night after Mark was asleep, she slipped into Jake's room. He sat on his bed staring at the wall, his expression hollow. She sat beside him, touching his shoulder. "Jake, what's going on?" "Your dad told me about school." He didn't answer at first, then turned to her, his eyes blazing with anger and pain. "I can't do this anymore, Claire. I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's falling apart." Her heart sank. "What do you mean?" He stood pacing, his fists clenched. "This us, it's killing me. I love you, but sneaking around lying to Mark, it's not fair. It's tearing me apart." Tears stung her eyes. "Jake, I know." "No, you don't," he interrupted, his voice rising. "You started this, Claire. You kissed me back that night. Now I can't stop thinking about you, and it's wrong. It's so wrong." His words were a mirror reflecting her guilt, her shame. She'd crossed the line, ignited this fire, and now Jake was burning in it. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never meant to hurt you." He stopped pacing, his expression softening. "I know you didn't, but it doesn't change what's happened. I don't know what to do now." She took his hand, squeezing it. "We'll figure it out, Jake. Together." But the words felt hollow, a promise she couldn't keep. The damage was done, the consequences inevitable. In the days that followed, Jake's behavior spiraled: more skipped classes, more fights, his anger a mirror of the chaos within. Mark grew distant, his suspicions mounting, until one night the truth erupted. Mark confronted Claire, his voice shaking with rage. "I know about you and Jake. How could you do this to us?" The words were a death knell, shattering the life they'd built. Mark moved out, filing for divorce, with a ruthlessness that left Claire reeling. The process was swift, the house and assets divided without contest. On a cold November morning, Claire sat in the empty living room, divorce papers in hand, the weight of her choices crushing her. Jake struggled to find his footing, dropping out of college and taking a job at a grocery store. His anger toward Claire grew, his words cutting deep. "You ruined my life," he spat one night, his voice raw. "You took away my chance at a family, at normalcy." She wanted to argue, to share the blame, but the truth silenced her. She'd broken him turn their bond into something destructive. Alone in the attic one evening, Claire found a box of old photo snapshots of her and Mark young and in love. At the bottom was a letter from Mark, written after their wedding, promising eternal love and fidelity. Tears fell as she read grief and anger warring within her for the life lost, the promises broken. She packed the box away, shoving it into a corner, but its weight lingered, a reminder of her betrayal, her loss, and the dark spark that had consumed them all. Jake moved out soon after their contact reduced to strained silences. Claire rebuilt her life piece by painful piece, but the scars remained a testament to the forbidden flame that had burned her world to ash.